Good morning and welcome to our next language lesson. Today we're going to learn some special forms of good and bad. So I wrote our sentences here. That good is used as an adjective, well is used as an adverb. We prayed for good weather. Good is describing weather like an adjective would. Our trip went well. Well, how did it go or went? It went well. And last of all, for health reasons, we use well. Our teacher did not feel well. So, looking down here at our chart, we see that we have 3 columns of our adjective chart. Here's when we have one thing compared. We use good and bad. For adjective, when there's 2 or more things, better and worse, worse. And when we are comparing 3 or more things, we'll use the words best and worst. So let's look at the first sentence here. Today's snowfall was, well, it's talking about today's, it's only one. So I'm going to say that it was good. I could have said bad, but I want a happy snowfall day, right? Okay. Our next sentence, yesterday's snowfall was blank than today's. How many things are we comparing? 2. So do you want to say it was better or worse? Let's go for better, but worse would have been fine also. And our next one, last month's snowfall was the blank of all. If it's all, then we're comparing 3 or more things. So is it the best or the worst? I'm going with best today. How about today's ice storm was? Well, it's one thing. Is it going to be good or bad? Ice storms, not so fun, so I'm going to put bad. Now, let's look at our adverb chart. You notice here when we compare, or we're talking just about one thing, we use well and badly. But over here, with our 2 and 3 and more, we actually use similar to what we did for adjectives. Better, worse, best, worst. So let's look at these sentences. Our new barometer works. Well, how does it work? You can choose because it's just one thing, right? I'm going to say that it works well. And well is describing how it works. This new barometer works blank than the old one. Well, is it working better or worse? You can choose. Because you're comparing one thing to 2 things. Our first barometer works the blank of all. Well, if it's of all, it's the 3 or plus. Do you want best or worst? Let's go with best. Fire blank burned Mr. Frank's orchard. Okay, so fire's not a good thing in this circumstance because his orchard just burned down. So I'm going to say fire badly burned Mr. Frank's orchard. The next sentence, the trees produced blank this year than last year. Well, it sounds to me that if it just got burned, it's probably, and it's 2 things. It's this year and last year. I'm going to say worse. And our last one, last month, the Potomac flooded the blank it had in 25 years. Well, I think flooding isn't a happy thing, so I'm going to say worst. And that's because in that many years, that's 3 or more. Okay, so that is what our lesson is on, is good, bad, well, and, or good and bad, and then how well comes off of that. And how they're similar when we have 2 and 3 or more. So, look at page, oh, you don't have page 243. Yes, you do. You do have page 243. Okay, so look at page 243. You see the directions are up here along with a great little chart for you to remind you what we just talked about. So always refer back to here if you have any questions. You should be able to look at the chart, which is very similar to the 2 we just made, and you'll be able to figure out it. So let's look at number 1. It wants, read directions first. It says underline good or well to complete each sentence. So let's go back to our directions on the other page so we can look at them together. Good is the adjective, well is the adverb. Blank weather in the Arctic inland reaches highs of 70 degrees to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, it's talking about weather. You're going to describe weather, which is a noun. So yeah, you're going to use a form of good. So underline Good. Good weather in the Arctic inland reaches highs of 70 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Number 2, the ice fisherman did not feel blank after being on the ice for several years. No, hours. Oh my goodness, could you imagine years? So remember when we talk about health, like the teacher did not feel well, we use that form for health. So then the word you're going to underline for number 2 is well. The ice fisherman did not feel well after being on the ice for several hours. And number 3, because Siberia's temperatures are so cold, people have to bundle up. What? So this is they're having, which is the verb to bundle up. So they're having, so that's a verb, so we need to use the adverb well. Because Siberia's temperatures are so cold, people have to bundle up well. So number 4, we have to choose between 2 of them, underline our choice, and then you're going to draw the arrow to the word it's describing. Okay, so for number 4, read along with me. W.A. Bentley is a better or best photographer of snow scenes than of wild animals. Well, 2 things are being compared. First of all, snow scenes, and second of all, wild animals. So there's 2 things. So which one are you going to choose, better or best? Better for 2 things, right? So underline better, and then we're going to draw an arrow from better. So you picked better, you're underlining it, and you're going to draw it because they're talking about him as a photographer. So he's a better photographer of snowstorms than of wild animals. So you underline better and you draw the arrow to where it's identifying it. Okay, number 5, inland Arctic temperatures are worse or worst than those along the coast. Well, you ask yourself, how many things is it comparing? It's comparing 2, right? Inland temperatures and along the coast. So it's 2, so you're going to do worse or worst. You're going to do worse, right? Because it's 2 things. And which one is worse? Inland Arctic temperatures are worse than those along the coast. So what is worse? Yeah, we're going to go back to temperatures. Number 6, last night was the worst or worst snowstorm in January. Well, it's talking about all the time. So are we going to use worse or worst? When it's all the time, we're going to use worst. So I'm going to write worst right here for that one. And underline it because that's what we needed to do. And what is worst? Last night was the worst snowstorm. Yeah, so we're going to point it to snowstorm. Number 4, the worst or worst danger arising from the heavy mountain snowfall is an avalanche. Okay, so the worst thing that could possibly happen, so it's talking about all of them, so we need to pick worst again. And what is worst? The danger. So we just did the worst danger arising from a heavy mountain snowfall is an avalanche. And the last one, wet ground soaks up the water better or best than dry snow-covered ground. Well, we're talking about wet ground or dry snow-covered ground. We're talking about 2, so we're going to either use better or best. Well, 2, yeah, is better. So underline better, and let's see what it's describing. The wet ground soaks up the water better than the dry snow-covered ground. So what it is pointing back to soaks, which means that that's the verb. So better right here in this one was actually an adverb. Okay, guys, you have worksheet 80. We're all the way up to 80. Once again, for the first part, we'll do like we did in the first part. The second part is what we just did with deciding which one in the parentheses is the correct form and pointing it back to what it's describing or what is being compared or which one is it. And then the third one, we're doing some proofreading, which is a little different. You're going to figure out what form they've used and if it's the correct one. So let's do the first sentence together. It says, black ice is one of the worst road hazards in winter. Is worse used correctly there? It's not, because it's one of the in all ones. So we know when it's in all, 3 or more, we need to use worst. So you're going to take your worst, you're going to delete it, and up above it, you're going to put worst. So that's what your page should look like for each one that you have to delete it and add the correct version. There is a total, we just did one of them, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There'll be 8 total, including the one we just did. Remember that number, you need to find 8. That's 8. Okay guys, I think you are ready to go. Have a good time. Don't stress over it. Ask questions. Write them down if you have them now and share them at lifetime. And it's always okay to have your parents text on Dojo or email. I get Dojo sometimes more. It's easier. So if you have Dojo, please Dojo me and we can go through it. Okay, see you in a bit. Bye-bye.